Welcome to another episode of the Myrtle Beach Golf Report, powered by Play Golf Myrtle Beach. I'm Kyle Oland, and as always, joined by David Williams. We are live here in the golf capital of the world. A beautiful, sunny Wednesday afternoon. David, as we always say when we walk into the office, it's a great day for golf.
It truly, truly is a great day for golf today. I woke up, walked outside. It is August 14th, and it was 70 degrees this morning. What in the world, man? I mean, truly, truly a great day for golf.
It's one of those hidden, it's those false falls is what I'll call them.
Oh.
Where you wake up and you think fall's on the horizon in Myrtle Beach. And if you've been to or live in Myrtle Beach and you know what our fall weather like, it is heaven. David, it is my favorite time of the year here, and it's not even close.
Easily. And, I mean, Falls Fall is like anywhere in the South, too, right? Like, I'm from Atlanta. We have it in Georgia. Like, it's pretty much anywhere in the South. South of really Kentucky. You get those few days where it's, oh, wow, it's pleasant. Like, maybe I could get away with a quarter zip. And then, like, 2 days later, it's 95 with 90% humidity.
Yeah. So it's definitely a false fall morning here in the golf capital of the world. But fall is coming, and that means fall golf trips, right, David?
Correct.
And we always get asked, hey, when is the best time to visit Myrtle Beach on a golf trip? Really, anytime. You can play golf year-round here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But from our vantage point, if you're looking to have the best experience, it's either spring or fall, and I would dare say that I prefer fall over spring.
Yeah, I would also prefer fall, even though I literally did a spring golf trip here. Fall truly is the best time of year, and it's not just because of weather and course conditions and everything like that. If you come on a weekend, like you play a Saturday morning round, you get done right at the kickoff of a whole college football slate Sunday with the NFL. Some days, in the fall, October into September, beginning of November, it is still warm enough to go to the beach, at least hang out there. Not necessarily, not going to sit here and gaslight everybody and tell them that you can sit there in your swim trunks with no shirt, but like you might have to have a shirt on. But it's truly like there isn't anything bad about fall. Well, yeah, no, nothing really bad about it.
The only thing I could make an argument on is that after daylight savings, it gets dark later, so it's harder to play 36. You can still do it, but it is difficult. It just gets darker earlier.
36 whole days are overrated on a golf trip. I'll say it. That's probably a very unpopular opinion, but we, on my group, we have eliminated the 36 whole days. I think it's mainly because we're all washed and getting old, but it's definitely better for quality of life.
The folks that play 36 on a golf trip, I just think they're the golf sickos and they're the golf nuts. Actually, let us know in the comments or shoot us a message or a DM on Play Golf Myrtle Beach and let us know if you're an 18 or 36 golf trip group. And if you are coming to Myrtle Beach, or if you're thinking about coming to Myrtle Beach, David, there's only one place to go, and that's playgolfmyrtlebeach.com. From there, you can start planning your golf trip and get a quote from one of our great golf package partners. And if you've never been to Myrtle Beach, going through a packager is the optimal way because they can curate a Myrtle Beach golf experience just for you and your friends. And with over 80 different courses along the Grand Strand, 60 miles of beach, it can get tough. It can get tough to plan a golf trip.
A lot of options.
A lot of options. So that's where a golf packager comes into the fold. And they can also help you save a little money. You might actually end up paying less than you would if you go book direct. So if you're confused, you don't know how or where to start, head over to playgolfmyrtlebeach.com. And David, last week was not a great time to be in Myrtle Beach on a golf trip because we had a little thing called Tropical Storm Debby roll through here, didn't we? Dang, dude, how long have you been waiting to hit that button?
I was trying to figure out how to work that in. I was refreshing my memory on the soundboard that's when I just got back here. Yeah, we had Tropical Storm Debby roll through the area. If you all follow us on social, you probably saw the video or the graphic that was thrown out with the link to the course closures page. Overall, like I would say we're lucky. They were calling for 18 to 24 inches of rain. Some spots got more rain than the others. But overall, I'd say we got lucky.
Yeah, the news reports, and if you've lived in the South long enough, you know that during hurricane season, the weather stations and the weather reporters, they always exaggerate what's happening. And, leading up to Debby coming through the area, it was colossal, historical rain, unprecedented amounts of rain in our area, which really gets a lot of people very nervous. And it gets those up in the those who are planning on coming here for a golf trip very nervous because they think, oh my goodness, no, there's going to be a colossal flood, Myrtle Beach will be gone, and it starts to scare people. And that's where we try to come into fold and really try to tell people what's actually happened. So talk a little bit, David, about what actually happened last week, how many days courses were actually closed, and then how quickly those courses reopened.
So just to give you all a little background, Debby was not like your typical tropical event. That will be a common word that you're going to hear on this show. You're going to sense a theme to it. More on that later. But Debby was slow moving, right? That's where the flood talks came in. And luckily for us, not so much for the people of Georgia, Florida, Debby got eaten up by a bunch of dry air. So that took away a lot of the, prolonged downpours that were predicted for this area. Now, that being said, golf courses still shut down, not because they were underwater, but just for the safety of staff and would-be patrons, right? That's the main reason that they were shut down from probably, Tuesday to Thursday, about 3 days. And then starting Friday, a majority opened up. A handful stayed closed Friday. I know Caledonia True Blue, they stayed closed through Friday just to give maintenance. They didn't have any major damage. They just wanted to give maintenance their time to do their thing, reopen. They reopened Saturday, and then a handful stayed closed through the weekend and then reopened on Monday. So, and a few more are closed for to be determined right now, that, places that don't drain as well, that they're just dealing with a little bit more water than expected. So, roughly golf courses were closed for about anywhere from 3 to 4 days.
Yeah. That sounds about right. That by Saturday, courses were back open and play was being had. And like we said earlier today, it is a great day for golf. Sun is out. Beautiful. And one of the things that we'll get into in this episode coming up is we talked with Jim Huntoon, who's a superintendent, was a superintendent, right? He's pretty much the Don of superintendents.
Yeah.
The couple times, and we're going to talk to him about what that process is like for a golf course. And this guy knows a lot about growing grass.
Yeah, fascinating story that we'll dive into kind of every bit of it. But yeah, he's here to essentially tell us what him and his team when he was a superintendent would go through. So fascinating conversation. You all will thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah, so stay tuned. That is coming up later in this episode. But also want to talk a little bit about some current events that have happened recently in the game of golf. News. We like to keep our tabs on those. And one thing that came up in the headlines this week and on Twitter, a lot of people were voicing their opinions, was the incident with Kuchar and what happened out where that was at Wyndham, right?
Yeah, that was up in Greensboro.
Yeah, up in Greensboro, in the Carolinas, really. And David, tell us your thoughts on what happened. And I'm sure at this point everybody knows what happened with him calling early while he was on 18. What was he, in the middle of the fairway, right?
Yeah, so if you all missed it, I'm sure most of you, if you're listening to this show, probably didn't miss it. But in case you did, the Wyndham Championship actually dealt with Tropical Storm Debby as well. Completely canceled play Thursday, delayed them Friday. Everybody on that staff did an incredible job, from maintenance to golf ops, to get that golf tournament up and running Friday. They played, I think it was the first time ever, they played parts of round 2, round 3, and round 4 all on Sunday. Luke Clanton played 39 holes on Saturday.
That's crazy. 2, 3, and 4 all on.
So it was getting slow towards the end, and Aaron Rye was up ahead of Grazerman, Kuchar, and I forget who was in their group, but Kuchar rushes up there and the rule is and this is along any competitive golf, not just the PGA Tour, but if the horn is blown as long as somebody has hit a tee ball on the next hole, you can finish that hole. So Kuchar runs up there. The rules official tells him, like, hey, we're not going to blow the horn. Like, there's 2 groups left. We're not doing that. Like, essentially, like, hey, man, just finish. And he gets up there, hits into Rye and them in the fairway. Luckily, like, a big old snap hook ball left, out, like, in the trees. And then, so Rye and them hit up, and Grazerman and I think it was Ramey or somebody get to the tee box. They hit, and Grazerman and Ramey go through. They go up and finish. Keep in mind, Max Grazerman 1 back at the time, or 2 back at the time, and he was like, I just need to finish. And Kuchar just picks up his ball. And once you pick up the ball, like, your hand's off the chess piece. That you can't just be like, well, never mind, I'll just finish. He was done. So everybody that had to, and I'd actually be curious to get friend of the program, Darren Nelson's comments on this, being a PGA Tour operator.
Maybe for another episode.
And so Kuchar picks up the ball, and so what that essentially does is it delays just about everything. It delays your shot length people from going to Memphis this week, so they're already behind. They're already behind as it is because they weren't going to get to Memphis till 2, 3 that next morning. It delays. You have to reopen the range, which is hysterical to think about. Player dining has to reopen, and you have to. Most PGA Tour events have some form of corporate outing where there's a bunch of CEOs and ops people that do play. The day after is like a celebration of, hey, great job, great week. And what that essentially did was that pushed that back and just about everything. So I don't really have an opinion. I think the opinion is like, if you want, the opinion's pretty unanimous across golf Twitter right now. Like, everybody's like, that was just so unnecessary. It's scuzzbally. Like,
yeah, the opinion starts with an A and ends with a hole.
Correct. And like the biggest issue I think that everybody has with it, like Jim Nance even made a quip about it. He was like, yeah, like Kuchar's going to come back and finish tomorrow, but like we're not going to be showing that. Like, and I think the biggest issue is that like Kuchar is, he's made $60 million in his career. In my opinion, the money doesn't matter how much he's made in his career. Like, that's irrelevant. But he's not playing to make the playoffs. He was already going to miss the playoffs since the playoffs moved to top 70. And he's like, well, I'm just going to wait. And I don't know how true like some of the comments that I've seen reported on Twitter are about him being like, well, like I just wanted to show Max Grazerman, like, hey, this is what you have to do. Like, if you're trying to win, like, don't rush. Like, don't go through this. And it's like, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, you weren't out there on a mission teaching assignment where you're like, I'm going to teach this young buck what to do. Just watch me.
So, I don't know. I mean, it's just a bad situation. Like, and Kuchar probably doesn't know it. I don't think he's a big social media guy, so he probably doesn't see the outrage. But
hold on. Do you think he's that oblivious that he has no idea that the world of golf absolutely looks at him as an a-hole? He has to know. You have to know.
Yeah.
Because, look, this is what I picture. The guy, he rolls up in the morning, sets the alarm. Alarm goes off. He gets dressed. He pulls up to the club, shows the credential. He gets in. He goes into player dining, orders his omelet that he orders before every round. Now, I'm making this part up, but this is what I'm envisioning. The Lone Ranger up there going up, all right, which they're out there, player dining. Then he moseys on out to the practice range, does his full pre-round routine. Could you imagine that? Being alone, the only guy to hit, 3 golf shots?
He hit 3 He actually made a great par, if we're being honest. Like, he lipped out a chip for birdie. That was sick.
Like, just that guy, just the one guy doing that.
Yeah.
He has to know that he's getting mean mugged the whole, 2 hours he's there.
Definitely he does know that, but I don't think he knows the extent, right? Like, it's not good. Like, just finish, man. Like, I think the difference between making par and bogey was like $100,000. And for a guy that's made $60 million, I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's not really that big of a difference. But, and I get it. Like, also with the, like, it probably does. Like, if he did make a bogey, it would affect like his standing for the fall and like regaining his card. And it's just, I just like, it sucks. It's
maybe he
gross.
was really trying to teach a lesson to working America, to not work too hard, and that tomorrow there's always a day to get your work done. Maybe that's what he was trying to do. Hey, don't worry about your 9 to 5. Like, you can always come back tomorrow and finish your job.
Yeah, I don't think that's what he was doing.
I don't think so either. But it's fun to talk about. Maybe we'll see him. What's he ranked right now? Like, could he be
idea.
Did he play in the Myrtle Beach Classic?
No. If anything, he was at Wells Fargo.
Okay.
He's had a good year. Like you said, a resurgence. And like Kuchar's, I mean, credit to him. He's been on the tour and kept his card for 2 decades. Like,
good on him, man. Good on him.
Like, that's not nothing. So
not nothing at all. But you know what else is something is this interview. So stay tuned, everybody. We're going to be bringing on Jim Huntoon, and I think this is going to be a really great interview. So
I do too. And shout out Scotty for winning the Olympics, and shout out Dylan for picking Pavon to win and him finishing DFL in his own country. Enjoy the interview, everybody. All right, everybody. We now have a very special guest on the show. The person that I haven't told him this nickname either, the international man of travel, Mr. Jim Huntoon. The guy has been on the road. I feel like every day I look at your Instagram story, you're at some different golf course in some different state. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
First, what's new? What's going on in your world?
Well, as you said, I've been traveling a lot. Have quite a few interns that are placed all over the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic, and have spent about 4 or 5 weeks this summer traveling around to visit them. Also have a lot of other interns here in the Myrtle Beach area. So as you've seen, David, I've been around the Myrtle Beach area as well, but a lot of travel.
Yeah, Jim, so, when I first met you, you were the superintendent down at Heritage, and now obviously, you're in a new position, in a new role. Tell me a little bit about that new position, what you're doing, what your responsibilities are. Before you came on, I was telling everybody listening that Jim Huntoon knows how to grow grass better than you. And explain a little bit about what you do.
So I accepted a position at Horry Georgetown Technical College in the golf course management or golf and sports turf management department. I'm a graduate of the department. We've had the degree there at the college since 1970. It's kind of grown with the Myrtle Beach golf scene. It's not everyone, but the majority of the superintendents and assistants in this area are graduates of the program. So I had an opportunity to go there and teach, and I'd like to say retire from being a superintendent. And now I get an opportunity to teach, influence, and maybe shape the next generation of turf grass managers, not just here in Myrtle Beach, but in the Carolinas and really nationwide and worldwide. We have students.
That's awesome. Before we dive into what we brought you here for, I want to expand on what you just said a little bit. You said the majority of people of assistants and heads are from or Georgetown. What does that mean to the golf course specifically to have? I don't want to call it this, but for lack of a better term, a feeder system in a way.
It's huge. It's kind of why the program has grown so much over the years. It's kind of been a program that started off that was really influential here in just Myrtle Beach. And as time has gone on, it's grown, and we've got a lot of graduates all over the place, but it is a feeder system, and it is a very important part of not just the golf market here in Myrtle Beach, but in the greater Carolinas, because we have other turf institutions in the states. Clemson and NC State are 2 big ones. We have some other 2-year schools like Horry Georgetown, but some of them have faded. We're the only one in South Carolina, guys. That's the big thing. So in North Carolina, you may have 4 or 5 technical colleges that have a turf program. The way we do it here in South Carolina is Horry Georgetown's the only one. So we get people from not just this area, but the whole state, really. And in fact, an exciting thing this year that I want to get out there is that if you're a resident of South Carolina, you can go to school for free, basically.
That's
through the
awesome.
SC Wins program, which is a program through the Department of Labor that helps industries that are in need of people coming into it. And they will, after your financial aid and whatever scholarships you have, this organization steps in and will basically pay for your tuition. We don't know how long it's going to last. This is the first year that our program has been included in that, but I think it's an indication of how much need there is in our industry for new people.
Yeah, and that is amazing for a young person to be able to get that education and then get out of school without any debt or go through school and not have to pay. So what an awesome thing for these kids. Now tell me a little bit, Jim. You said that you've been driving all around, visiting your different interns that are out and about. Where do you have students currently for the summer doing internships?
Well, let's see. We had 36 students interning.
I was going to say, this is about to be a long list.
Right.
Okay, give us some notables.
Quite a few up in the mountains of North Carolina, High Hampton, Mountaintop, Biltmore Forest, Grandfather Golf and Country Club, Jefferson Landing. It's about a mixture, Kyle, of mine are about half and half out of area and in area. I have one at Grand Dunes Resort, two at Grand Dunes Members, Heritage Club, Wedgefield, Myrtle Beach National. I mean, you name it, we've got them.
Now, why are you? What's the role in you going in and checking on them and visiting? What's your thought process there?
So our internship is different than some other institutions in that it's very academically rigorous compared to other internships. Some internships in the turf world, you just go work at the club or the facility and you learn hands-on learning. Ours has a whole component of projects and reports. And my role in visiting is it's to check on the students, get face-to-face with them, make sure that they're getting everything done, that they have any questions. And it's to convey to the mentors or the superintendents that, this internship takes time and effort from you to do it. And honestly, it's a networking and opportunity for us to grow the program. That's a big thing with it. Getting out and getting in touch with other superintendents and spreading the word. It's networking like in any other field.
Tell me a little bit about your career journey. You graduated here in the Myrtle Beach area, and I know when you were at Heritage, but tell us a little bit about your career journey and where you've been and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Well, this is a lot shorter. I worked at Caledonia Golf and Fish Club when I was in school. Once I graduated there, I worked there for 10 years, and then I went next door to Heritage for 13 years. I had an internship at Pinehurst number 8 in between there. But other than that, those are really the roles in this area that I had. I worked for Century Golf at Heritage Club and did some other things with them, helping out interim superintendent positions at a couple places. But really, I've been at Caledonia and Heritage right next door to each other. So a lot of tenure at both places.
That's not a bad travel situation. Not really.
Two great courses down there in Pawleys Island.
Your commute didn't change a whole heck of a lot.
No, I live basically a drive or 5-iron from the shop at Caledonia. So it was easy.
So you spent that much time at Caledonia and Heritage, and last week, for those listening, you heard us mention it earlier in the intro, but we did have Tropical Storm Debby. And you, as a superintendent working at 2 golf courses here for so long, and you mentioned it to us when you sat down, but you guys have a process when a storm is coming, when you're preparing for a storm. Tell us a little bit about the before and the after of a storm from a golf course maintenance level.
Well, this is something that I have a lot of experience with.
Unfortunately.
I can remember when I first started at Caledonia was when we had Hurricane Floyd. And, that was a pretty intense hurricane. Wind damage wasn't crazy, but we had a lot of flooding. And I was in preparation for coming up here to talk to you guys. I was kind of going through my archives a little bit, and there's about 15 or 20 storms that I've been involved with over the years, some more severe than others, but it is a process of preparation, and there's a lot that goes into it. And, I actually have a PowerPoint presentation that I do for the students to talk about storms and preparation and weather events and disasters, because it's part of being a turfgrass manager. But on the preparation side, these storms are different, right? Sometimes you have major impacts from wind, right? Sometimes you have major impacts from rain or flooding. Sometimes you have impacts from coastal flooding weeks after the fact. We've dealt with that with Florence back in 2018. But on the front end, obviously, preparing for the water is a big thing. You know, we try to lower the lakes down whenever possible. We try to maybe back off our irrigation a little bit to prepare the soils to accept more water, because they really are like sponges, guys. Yeah. You know, and the drier it is, the more they'll take in. So that's a big thing. You know, we try to obviously get the grass mowed as best we can. You know, we use a lot of products in the industry called growth regulators, which are basically products that we put on the turf to control the growth, to slow the growth down. Because obviously, you know, if you get a hurricane coming or a tropical storm, you don't know how long it's going to be before you can mow again. So that's a big preparation thing. On the greens, you know, applications of products to control pests like fungicides and insecticides are important. But, you know, it also comes at a time of year, guys, when, you know, the grass is really growing hard.
Yep.
Many facilities here locally in Myrtle Beach and in the Carolinas rely more than ever on high school and college labor. It wasn't like that 20 years ago. It wasn't like that 10 years ago. It's like that now. And this is the time of year when they all leave. Yep. Right? So I always looked at this period between now, mid August to October 1 as a period where you're literally just hanging on, you know, just because you're trying to do as much as ever with less staff. Yeah. Right? So, but those are the big things in preparation. You know, if it's going to be a really heavy windstorm type thing, obviously preparing chainsaws, making sure you have adequate fuel, that you have plenty of chainsaws, that all your equipment is up and operational that you're going to need. You don't know if you're going to lose power, right? So generators are important. And, you know, a lot of these facilities here in Myrtle Beach have a accommodation component with the golf. Mm-hmm. And then you're looking at a situation where you may have guests staying with you, and you have to find out a way to feed them. Well, if you've got 100 people staying with you and you don't have power, right, you're going to have a generator to get everything up and going so you can at least feed the people and house them. So there's a lot of stuff on that front end that you have to prepare for. But we get practice, and I think this area in the coast of the Carolinas is very hurricane prone, and yep. You know, we know what to do. So I think preparation wise, we're very skilled at that. So that was a little bit of a long-winded answer, David. But
no, that's what I was looking for. There's no such thing as a long-winded answer on here when him and I are here. We'll sit here and gab about anything. So that was exactly what we were looking for. So let's talk like coming out of it. You mentioned a few different outcomes from a storm, right? You have something like Florence, where the main issue became flooding post-storm. You have right. Something like Matthew, where it was high wind, or something like Floyd, where it's really high wind and a lot of rain, so trees are coming down easy. What does your first day back, when you know that it's safe to go back first and foremost, what does your first day back look like?
Documentation.
Yep.
That's huge. That was always my thing, because obviously a lot of these facilities have insurance policies to protect us from these. And part of that is you need to get that raw footage of the first thing I would like to do, you know, like after Matthew, is I spent a day and a half just walking the golf course, taking pictures of everything, you know, every tree that's down, every major bit of damage. And it's documentation and assessment of hazards, mm-hmm. right? You know, we want to get open as soon as we can. Everybody knows that, right? I mean, we're here to provide, you know, recreation, and we have a lot of people that want to come down here and play these courses, and we don't want to spoil their vacation, but we have to be safe. And it takes a while when you have a serious storm to assess. But honestly, guys, sometimes the ones that don't really seem very serious are the hardest ones to assess, right? Because you can ride around and, oh, yeah, everything looks fine, you know, but 2 weeks go by, and next thing you start looking up at all the trees and you see all the dead limbs and all the widowmakers, yep. you know, and so it's a process of of really assessing and documenting the damage is step number one, Dave.
You hear that, guys? They want to get open as soon as possible, but remember, the number one priority in all of this is to keep people safe.
It is. And, you know, the great thing about here in the Myrtle Beach market is we have a lot of different style golf courses, right? You look at a golf course like Heritage or Caledonia, where I've been, you have a major wind event. Those courses are going to be harder to get open than somewhere, say, like the Heathland course at the Legends, right? If you don't have a lot of trees, you're going to obviously be able to get open quicker. You're not going to have as many hazards, right? So the good thing we have here in the market is there'll always be places that will open before, and some of the other ones that maybe have more trees are going to maybe take a little bit longer.
Now during this process, Jim, what's one of the biggest challenges that you and your team face during a closing situation of a golf course?
Couple things, Kyle, I would say. You know, obviously people have to take care of their own first, right? If they may have damage at their house or they may not be able to get into work. With the flooding situations, I've dealt with that where they just can't get to work. And then secondly, during the cleanup process, safety is huge, you know, because obviously it's a time where we want to get after it, but we have to be safe. When you're dealing with chainsaws and heavy machinery and trees and that kind of stuff and cleanup, you know, there's hazards. There's natural hazards too. You know, snakes, alligators, animals have been displaced too. So you got to be safe. So that takes a little bit extra time. You know, I know over the years at Heritage, especially, and this is like this at a lot of Myrtle Beach facilities, you'll get a lot of help from your operations staff, whether it's pro shop, you know, F&B, operations will come out. So you'll have a lot of people out there because everybody wants to help and get the thing cleaned up and get back open. So you have some inexperience out there. So pairing experience with inexperience is huge.
Yeah, I can imagine just the amount of potential issues that come when you're using a chainsaw. And I'm sure you've seen some things, and you mentioned snakes. In your line of work, because I'm petrified of snakes.
I know.
Not a snake guy over
I know.
here. How many snakes have you encountered, and have you ever had any close calls?
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Have never had anybody that I worked with that has gotten bitten by a snake. But Heritage was a haven for copperheads. We would find a lot. And saw some water moccasins and that kind of stuff. But thankfully, in my time, I've never had a issue with a alligator or snake biting or hurting anyone. So
I mentioned it off the top here. And you know, golf courses are still recovering from last week. Like I said off the top, we did get lucky compared to what everything was being predicted. But what is something that the consumer wouldn't think about? What is something that is really time intensive for your team, for a team at any golf course here coming out of one of these storms?
Well, this particular storm, we've had an incredible outbreak of armyworms.
That was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So armyworms are a caterpillar pest that eat Bermuda grass leaves, basically. And they're basically the larva stage of a moth, right? If you ever walk in the grass in the evening or what, and you see moths fly up, those are some type of caterpillars is the larva stage of those, right? So they tend to be a pest of turfgrass this time of year normally, but tropical storms like Debby bring them up from the south and blow them up here. And then the wet conditions, they hatch, and they're called armyworms because they march in unison and literally mow down grass, it's kind of a double-edged sword because a lot of this grass hasn't been mowed and needs to be mowed, but they're also, you know, it's too wet to get out and treat them a lot of times too, so you kind of have to just deal with it. That's a big issue. You know, protecting the greens from this storm in particular from pathogens, right? When you have a lot of wet weather like we had, you need to make applications to the greens to protect them. I think that's a big thing. And just getting the mowing back on schedule is huge, is tough. And Obviously, if the bunkers wash out, depending on the golf courses, that's a very time-consuming process. And everybody's eyeing towards World Am. You guys know that, right?
Yep.
So everybody's keen on getting things back to normal for that, right? And this storm brought variable rain, right? And I've seen reports up here in North Myrtle Beach, 15, 16 inches in spots, right? Down in Pawleys, we got about 7 or 8. There's other areas that maybe only got 4. And another big thing, guys, is we have 2 types of soils here in the Myrtle Beach area. Okay, we have sandy soils, and then we have some courses with clay soils. The golf courses with sandy soils are going to drain faster. The ones with clay are going to drain slower. Mm-hmm. So just getting back out there and getting things mowed down, it's kind of a decision you have to make, right? Do we want to go out and mow before it's really dry enough and just kind of plow what we call plow through it or mud it up and just get it mowed, or do we wait? Yeah. And a lot of that depends on, were you able to get out your growth regulation ahead of time? I know a lot of courses in the area before Debbie got here were out spraying growth regulators to try to slow the grass down.
How does a growth regulator work?
Well, Kyle, there's several different types, but it basically interrupts processes within the gibberellic acids inside the turf grass plant that basically reduces growth. It just slows it down. Normally we try to suppress the growth to 50%, I guess is kind of like a benchmark. But these products are used throughout the season, right?
Now, are you only using them during storms like this when you're expecting a lot of rain, or when would you typically use a growth regulator?
We use them all during the growing season. And this is greens, this is fairways, this is tees. This can even be in the rough to an extent.
See, these are things that golfers have no clue.
Unless they've worked at the golf course maintenance level, not even the maintenance level, unless they've worked at a superintendent level or an assistant level, they have no idea.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's so amazing to me when you learn more about what superintendents do. You guys literally are the heart and soul of that golf course. Without a superintendent that knows what he's doing, that's really the ultimate success of a golf course. Would you what are your thoughts on how important the super is for a golf course?
Well, I'm biased.
I was going to say, Kyle just asked you to brag about yourself.
I don't think it's a real secret, guys, that the superintendents are the highest paid guys on the facility, right? And that's because, the late Todd Weldon from Caledonia told me something early on in my career. He's like, Jim, these are not amusement parks. We've got one ride, and it has to be good. And if it's not good, the whole place comes down. And he's right, and I'm not discounting what, pro shop staff, pros, GMs, it's all, F&B, it's all part of it, right? But there is a science to it, and, that's a lot of what, we try to teach at the college, and we are very keen on presenting a good product. It means a lot to us, Kyle, and, back to the growth regulators, they don't just slow growth either. They also improve texture. That's a big thing on greens I wanted to mention, why we use them on greens, right? Is because not only do they slow the growth of the grass, they make the leaves smaller, right? The smaller the leaves are, the better the ball rolls. So it's their use on greens is very commonplace throughout the year, and very important part of providing good putting conditions.
Speaking of putting conditions, I heard at the Myrtle Beach Classic the putting conditions were excellent. And I think
transition.
It's a great transition that we'll get into because recently, today, the PGA Tour announced their new dates for the 2025 calendar year, and obviously the Myrtle Beach Classic being on there. And Jim, you played a large role in the Myrtle Beach Classic, and I think one of the things that David and I we found out about, we were just amazed by, is that the local community support from area superintendents that came together to help create a fantastically conditioned golf course at the Dunes Golf and Beach Club earlier in May. Tell me a little bit about what your involvement was and how important it was for the local community to come together to help.
Well, first and foremost, it was staff at the agronomy staff at the Dunes Club laid the foundation, and everyone over there, Steve Hamilton, Josh Taylor, everyone over there had the golf course in prime preparation, prime condition before the event. But these events take a lot of manpower, and a lot of people don't understand behind these PGA Tour events, there is a volunteer staff, usually doubles or triples the size of the normal crew. And here in Myrtle Beach, it was no different. We had a huge outpouring of support from the local community. Quite a few of students were there. I mean, we had 7 students working at the Dunes Club. We had another 11 volunteer. We had a lot of local superintendents, a lot of local assistant superintendents, vendors, just a whole group of people that came together, right? And a lot of the people that were there at the Dunes Club have volunteered at other events for the PGA Tour or USGA events. But it's a grind. It's a long week. But it's a lot of fun too, and it's cool to be a part of it. But we were very proud of how things turned out. I think the feedback that I got from the players, and I was able to talk to a lot of them during the practice rounds because I was doing data collection on the greens, which is basically stimping the greens and checking the firmness and everything. So I was out there amongst them, and they were blown away by the Dunes Club. You know, a lot of them came in not having any idea what they were in for, but to a man, they were very impressed. Robert McIntyre was one guy that I talked to a bunch who went on to have some big wins after Myrtle Beach. Yeah. But he's like, man, I had no idea. But the conditions were great. The greens were definitely at championship speed. And I thought the whole golf course was presented fantastically.
What during that week, you know, you said it's a grind, and I saw you out there, I think Tuesday, Wednesday, early. What does it look like? Do you all have like roving teams, or what? What does like your morning look like when you're on?
So
that
we
staff?
arrive at 4 a.m. And we have breakfast and have a team meeting from 4 a.m. to 4:30. You know, people will kind of stagger and come in, and then everybody in the morning, you pretty much do the same job in the morning. Everybody pretty much does the same job all week, right? Because they kind of want you to be proficient at what you're doing, whether you're a volunteer or whether you're on the staff. And then, you know, we worked till about 9, and then we would usually eat again after that. And then you're off between 9 and 3:30. So you can either stay on site, you can go watch golf, or you can go home or go to your hotel and rest. And then we come back about 4, eat another meal, and go back out and do either the task that you did in the morning or a different task, depending on what task you're doing, right? So you're basically doing the same thing in the morning and then in the afternoon. You know, I did it. You know, I was on data collection. So we would collect data in the morning after all the treatments were done, after the mowing and the rolling, right? In the evening, we go out before any of the treatments to see how have the greens changed during the day. How much speed have they lost, right? Are they firmer than they were in the morning? Are they smoother? And then that data is used to make decisions on what treatments are going to be done to the green in the afternoon.
What was that transition period like for the greens from the start of the day till the end of the day?
Usually they were losing about a foot of speed on the stimp meter. And then as far as the firmness, they would tend to be pretty consistent with the firmness. That didn't really change very much. So we were using what's called the GS3 ball from the USGA, which is a new technology. It's basically an automated ball that you roll off the stimp meter that gives you the what we call the smoothness and the trueness. And basically, that's how much the ball is going to bobble up and down and how much it's going to snake side to side. That number would go up in the evenings because obviously when you have 144 players playing and caddies walking on the greens, you can't expect them to be the same, right? So those numbers would go up, right? Firmness would stay the same. Speed would go down a little bit. And then that information is then used to make decisions. Are we going to, mow the greens once? Are we going to double cut the greens? Are we going to backtrack mow them, right? Are we going to roll them? That's all where all that, it's all data driven decisions basically.
Now, who's making the call on those decisions?
So that's going to be Steve Hamilton and Josh Taylor, right? Steve Hamilton's the director of facilities and agronomy, and Josh Taylor's the superintendent, in conjunction with Thomas Bastis, PGA Tour agronomist, the three of them. And then, Thomas is going to go back and talk to the rules officials that are, running the competition. Obviously, they're going to have some input, or going to tell Thomas what they expect. But really between Thomas, Steve, and JT is where those decisions are made.
What so you mentioned that you after your morning prep you have some downtime. Did you get a chance to watch a bunch of golf?
I did.
What was your favorite kind of moment from sitting there watching it? Because it was history here along the Grand Strand first PGA Tour event. What was your kind of favorite moment from that week, from your off time?
Probably didn't have anything to do with watching the golf.
Yeah.
I've probably been to 100 professional golf tournaments in my life. In fact, my wife used to work on the PGA Tour, and I used to go visit her. And from 99 or 2000 to 2001, I went to 10 events a year, right? So, and I've been fortunate in my career to go to a lot of events. But I guess more just the downtime was cool because I got a chance to spend time with students and talk to them. I was doing some media work for the Carolinas Golf Course Superintendents Association. I recorded a bunch of podcasts like we are here today, which was fun. And just getting to know a lot of the crew and the people at the Dunes Club, and being behind the scenes there. And I don't know, just the fact that we were able to pull off such a great event. You guys were both there and integral part of this. And, I really feel like the Myrtle Beach golf community came together, and, we have a lot of doubters out there, but I think we showed something.
Yeah, I think that's what,
right.
Yeah, we did. And I think that's what makes the Myrtle Beach Classic special, is that there were so many people within the Myrtle Beach golf community that had a hand in its success, that there are so many people that can look back and be proud of the impact that they had in the success of that event, that no person's role was too small. Like David and I doing media stuff, you guys doing what you did from the turf and agronomy standpoint. And I got to ask you this, Jim. There's no doubt you can see the passion you have for what you do for a living and what you've done for 23 years, or that you did for 23 years in the Myrtle Beach golf market. What was it that drew you into this profession? Why did Jim Huntoon decide to do what he's dedicated the last 25 plus years to?
Because I love golf. That's really all it comes down to. My love of the game, and just the game has given me a lot. So it's always been a constant in my life, Kyle, and it is something that I'm passionate about. A lot of superintendents and turfgrass managers are, a lot of people are, but that I think you don't have to love golf to be a great superintendent, but I think it helps a lot because it is a grind. It is. We're here talking about tropical weather and storms. Battling Mother Nature is not fun sometimes because you can't control it. And as soon as you think you've got something licked, it's going to show you that you do not. So you have to have a little bit of love for the game and fortitude. But that's really it, man. I love golf. I love turf, but, my love is really based in the game and everything about it. I love a lot of different facets of golf.
So kind of building off of that, you were a superintendent for years. You have to have some, I'm not going to say crowning achievement. We'll say favorite kind of moment, memory. Do you have one from your time as a superintendent?
Man, that's a tough question.
We're getting deep here.
Honestly, when I look back at my career, David, a few of the things that I'm most proud of is I feel like when I was at Heritage Club, I provided very consistent conditions, and I feel like I took the golf course from where it was to a level up, and I had a lot of great people that I worked with. Yep. And people ask me a lot, do I miss it? And I usually say no. I do certainly miss certain aspects of it. My favorite part about being a superintendent was the people, was being the leader of the team or one of the leaders when I was at Caledonia, and the relationships, and that's kind of with this transition that I've made into teaching. I've been able to replace my love of the people that I worked with into a love of working with the students, right? It kind of feeds the same thing inside of me, but I'm proud of the fact that as a superintendent that, I never had any major injuries underneath me. I felt fortunate for that because, things can happen. But usually I think about the consistency and, providing a good workplace for people is a very rewarding thing. So
you're only as strong as your team, especially when it comes to the golf course maintenance side of things, I feel like.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, you have to inspire people, because it's tough work sometimes. And, I was very hands-on. It's farming, right? It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's a 24/7 type job, and I treated it as such. But now that I'm not doing it anymore and do have more of a job with normal hours, I realize how important I knew how important that was then, but I realize it even more so now. So, it's a great feeling I've always said this, that when you're a superintendent at a golf facility, if you do your job well, it makes everybody else's job at the facility better, right? If I don't do my job well, it impacts everyone. It kind of goes back to what I said about Todd Weldon, right? If the golf course is good, the bag drop's a lot happier, right? The Rangers are happier. The pro shop is happier. The F&B's happier, right? So it's a lot of responsibility, but it's also very rewarding when you can look at what you've done and be like, this made a difference. So,
where, as we kind of come to wrap here, where can someone go to find more information about Ora Georgetown and the class that you are specifically hands-on in?
Well, we're at hgtc.edu. That's pretty simple. We're available on social media. That's one thing I've done since I got to the college, is really kind of upped our social media presence. We're on Instagram and we're on Twitter and Facebook. Those are the three that I concentrate on. Mm-hmm. Really, Instagram is where I concentrate because I found really quickly that that's where most of the students are, and that's what I'm targeting. But, if you're interested in a career in turfgrass management, it's a better time than ever, right? Because like we said, you can basically, if you're a South Carolina resident, you can go to school for free, and you can get a job out of school making $50,000 or $60,000, just like that. So we have a ton of opportunity in the business right now.
And the game of golf and the trajectory the game has been on the last few years, it just really is a great time to get in. I can only imagine. And I'm sure these students, Jim, are lucky to have you and have you mentoring them because of that passion that you have. And I'm sure you mentioned one of the things you enjoyed when you were a superintendent was leading teams, inspiring. And now your team has changed a little bit. The age has probably gone down a little bit, mm-hmm. and you're inspiring them in different ways. And excited. And honestly, from a Myrtle Beach standpoint, we're fortunate to have someone like you who's passionate about this profession, leading this next generation of workers and professionals in our marketplace, because the market is only as strong as the talent we can have here.
Yeah, and the college has been successful. The program has been successful because, as much as anything, because of the superintendents and mentors, right? Every one of our students works in the business, right? And we've got a lot of great mentors in this area that have helped us over the years mentor the students, and that's what sets us apart, and we have a new initiative coming in January with the USGA called the GAP program, which is, in the simplest terms, it's just a 1-year program at the college. It's more designed for what I'll call green keepers, which are people that want to work on golf courses and make a good living just working on a golf course, making it more of a trade. The USGA started this up in Pinehurst, and we're moving it down here now to Horry Georgetown. They've hand-selected us to do that, and that's a really exciting thing for the market too, because I think that's going to provide opportunity for people here in the market, and we're hopeful to bring people in to come to school for the GAP program and maybe work at some of these Myrtle Beach golf facilities and just make, our presentation of our product here that much better.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, I appreciate you coming on today. Tell our listeners a little bit, tell them you're on Instagram. What's your Instagram? How can people find Jim Huntoon if they wanted to follow your journey?
I'm at Huntoon, HUNTOONJMSC, on Instagram, on Twitter. My accounts with HGTC, I believe it's HGTC Golf and Sports Turf. Welcome to follow me on any of those. And appreciate you guys having me on. And,
Thanks for coming.
I love promoting Myrtle Beach golf.
We do as well. And for those that are listening that have tuned in for today's episode, we thank you. Give this show a like, subscribe, follow the podcast. We appreciate it. Give us a rating, 5 stars always. That's the only thing we want. And Jim, there's one thing we do every time on this show, and you're about to learn it. David, there's only one thing left to do. See ya.